So we're now gonna do the outer layer of the truffles, and like I said, I like to use the dark chocolate because we have the semi-sweet in the center, and for some contrast, we're gonna have that bittersweet on the outside. So I got my bag of e-guitar. This one package is about 1 pound. I'm not gonna use the whole package. I saved some for reserve. So I have about enough that I feel that will coat all the truffles, and then I chopped it up a little bit to help melt it. Because what we're gonna do now is temper the chocolate, get it that right temperature to do the coating. So I tossed all my chocolate into a bowl. And really all I'm going to do is just microwave it. You kind of figure you want it to all melt and you want it to be over 100 degrees. I'm going to start out at about a minute and a half because I don't want to overdo it, because when you overdo it then that'll take a long time to cool down the chocolate. Because the idea about tempering is we want it to go over 100 to melt the chocolate, then we slowly bring it down to about 90 degrees, and then when it's at 90 degrees, that's when we add some of the old chocolate, which we call seeding chocolate, and that'll kind of help the chocolate sort of get back into the shape it needs to be in. And then when it hits about 86 degrees, that's the perfect temperature to start dipping our chocolate truffles. And we know all this with an instant read thermometer. So you definitely need to get an instant read thermometer. There's a lot of really inexpensive ones you can get at any of your grocery stores. And that's how we're going to be checking the temperature for our dipping chocolate. Another thing about working with chocolate that we're tempering is that you really want to make sure you don't get any water near it. So make sure your surface is totally dry. Use paper towels to make sure all your utensils are dry, because any water will make it more difficult for the chocolate to set. So that's an important tip to remember. Alright, so I just took the temperature of the chocolate and it was about 96. So that's kind of close to what I want. You know, it took a while. That's the problem about tempering. It takes a while for the chocolate to cool down, especially because the bowl is hot too, so you want the bowl to warm. But once we get it to about 90, then we get our chocolate that we didn't chop up and melt, just a few pieces, like maybe a handful, and we dump that in. Now this is called seeding chocolate, and what this does is that because we broke down the chocolate and it's kind of like broken down the chemical body of it, adding in this other chocolate sort of reminds it of what it needs to be like. So it helps it understand how to get hardened again. Or at least that's what my friend told me when she kind of explained the whole idea behind seeding chocolate. And all I do is I just follow the rules because I want to make sure I temper my chocolate the right way. So you do need to reserve a little bit of chocolate for seeding chocolate. Now the goal now is to get to about 86 degrees, and that's when we can start dipping. Alright, so here's my chocolate ready for dipping. The nice thing working about chocolate is it looks so luxurious when it's all melted. And here's my truffle pieces, and all I do is just dump in a couple at a time. And then I use these nice tongs that I got, the forks, to help me maneuver and get the chocolate out. So I make sure everything's covered, and then I let a little bit of chocolate drip off, and then I just put it into this ready-made area that I have with wax paper. The thing about, like I mentioned, the truffles, it needs to be totally coated to make sure that everything stays in and nothing contaminates it. So to do that, you really have to be really good about when you're putting down the chocolate, making sure that the fork doesn't create any sorts of hole. Now you can go back later and check and kind of use maybe a brush or some kind of other utensil to sort of cover up any sort of holes that you might be able to see. the tricky part is sometimes the smallest holes will let the interior of the truffle come out, and that's what you don't want to happen. So that's why I kind of, through the years, just having practice, I just kind of make sure that after dripping it a little bit, I kind of turn it over and I make sure that the bottom part of the fork I put on the top. That way if there are any holes, they'll be at the top and I can spot them easier. Now the truffles that I'm putting in were refrigerated, so they're a little cold, and that may bring down your temperature of the chocolate. So you have to kind of be aware of that. So you want to make sure that you check the temperature when it starts to get kind of thick, because then you know the chocolate's probably getting cold and it's not at that nice temperature, dipping temperature. Again, this is kind of like from experience. You kind of know after having done some chocolate dipping what it should be, what it should feel like. Alright, so now that we've got our chocolate all dipped, and then I've waited a bit for it to set, and then when it's all ready, we're just going to clean it up for presentation. What I like to do is check each one for what's kind of like a tail, from the dipping, and I just kind of shave it away with a paring knife, just so that it looks nice, when you're presenting. And each one, I put it in its own individual little paper cup. You can get these at any paper goods store or baking shops. I got mine at Sur La Table. I think it was designed for mini cupcakes. So while I'm doing this, this is a good time to check to make sure that none of these chocolates have any holes. At this point, it's too late to cover them up because I don't have any more chocolate to dip them in. But it's kind of like quality control right now, where I'm just checking to make sure that I'm not giving away any chocolate that has any holes, because when you do, if there are holes, the inside filling is going to ooze out, and it's not going to look that enticing for your friend. So this is kind of like the time when I kind of closely inspect it just to make sure there's nothing, and that we cut it on the edges just to make it look nice. And really this is just for presentation. And then so here you have some nice coffee chocolate truffles, just great for your Valentine's. Enjoy!